King Live.
Straight, no
King Live.
straight, no
King Live.
Good evening, everybody. My name is J. King. Welcome to J. King Live. Straight, no chaser. Interesting thing today is I don't have a set thing that I say. And when I first started the show, that I really worked to try to find something to say before every show. But today I realized that I'm not going to have something canned and special to say because the conversation isn't canned. It's not like any other conversation I'm going to have with you from the time before. All these conversations are going to be different. Today, this conversation is about us and our history. And when I say us, I'm talking about black folk, African Americans, Americans of African descent, the original American, because there's no America without us. But we have this propensity to want other people to make our history important to them. My question is, why isn't our history important enough for us to make it important? Today I'm going to have that discussion with a brilliant mind, a heavy lady, and we're going to have that discussion tonight, right here, right now. Straight, no chaser.
J. King Live.
straight, no
J. King Live.
straight, no
Straight, no chaser. Straight, no chaser. Straight, King Live.
Good evening, everybody. You don't even know what kind of treat you're in for. We have brilliant people in our community, and one of those brilliant people is here tonight. She's an educator and a historian, and whether she likes it or not, intellectual. And interesting thing about us is that we only remember names that are made important to us by sometimes what we call status quo, or people that fit into the box the right way. So we know about King and we know about Malcolm X, but there's other folk that we really don't know about. James Baldwin is a brilliant mind that we know peripherally, but we don't really know the depth of James Baldwin, who to me was one of the greatest minds that we overlooked. Well, my guest tonight, Brenda Harris, is one of those kind of minds. One of those minds that you don't hear about. You might not know about them, but they're out there. And so today I get to introduce you to my guest, Miss Brenda Harris. How you doing, Miss Harris?
It's a privilege to be here.
Actually, the privilege is mine.
We're not going to argue. It's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, I concede. Here we are. Interesting thing you said to me before the show started. You said, we're in the middle of two pandemics. And I said, which two pandemics? And you said?
The coronavirus and racism.
And racism is a pandemic that we've almost gotten used to. We almost expect the pandemic of racism to be here, so it's almost like it just is. Why is that?
Slavery was a peculiar institution, and it was very effective in conditioning us to be slaves.
Even now?
We still have the legacy of slavery. Oh, yes, and the trauma.
With that, if you look at the Jewish community, the first thing they did with the Holocaust is made sure that the Holocaust was never lost. That from generation to generation, the Holocaust was the number one thing that they brought. And they did it so that it would never happen again. Do you think it's true that the reason why we still have elements of slavery, and that is in treatment, the way we're treated, the way we're jailed and prosecuted, because we didn't bring that history with us the way the Jewish community brought forth the Holocaust with them from generation to generation?
They had different circumstances based on how we came from different parts of Africa, spoke different languages, the brutality. We did not have the opportunity to have a coordinated, comprehensive effort to sustain the language and the culture, and it was beaten out of us. So that's a difference. That our ancestors did the best that they could do, and under the circumstances, they did the best that they could do, and it's our responsibility to reclaim that, to reclaim our history and culture, since they couldn't do it the full force and orientation because of brutality. You couldn't speak your language. You couldn't have your culture. You couldn't practice your faith. We were dehumanized. When you're dehumanized, you don't have the same opportunity.
So, there, even in the dehumanization of us, there's some brilliant people.
Oh, yes.
that come out of, slavery. Robert Small, Harriet Tubman, of course.
And all the unsung heroes.
Exactly.
The fact that we survived slavery when we were not supposed to survive, we were all brilliant.
So why aren't we speaking of that brilliance in our community? What has happened that we don't make our history important to us as a community?
Integration had a part of it. Integration, the lack of, remember the history starts in the home also.
Right.
So the home is the first school. So the home, the church, and our social institutions, they carried that banner. So it all depends on economics also. So in Harlem, East Coast, based on the status, they had literary societies. You had the books in your home. You had readings. Bookstores, you had a place where you'd go. Even the slaves, there was always one person that could read, and they would come back and read to the group. So it was there, but it was not sustainable. And it wasn't systemic.
Here we are right now. It seems like we've gotten further away from our history than at any other time in the history of this country, in the history of us as African Americans. Is there any responsibility that we bear? Is there any responsibility that our leadership bears? Is there any responsibility?
We all bear the responsibility.
Okay.
We all have a role in ensuring that we know our history and our culture. That should be a part of our cultural lifestyle, our family lifestyles, our institutions. All of our institutions should be teaching culture and history in context.
And when you say in context, you mean in the real happenstance of it.
And the real history defines who you are as a people. Since we were subhuman, we were not supposed to have a history. So we carried that burden, not consciously, subconsciously that we were just trying to survive. So surviving was more important for the masses of people than maintaining the history and the culture, because it was so negative. Your dark skin, your big lips, your big hips. Everything was to keep us as the dark race.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, whatever we can do, we can reclaim all of that right now. You're talking about right now, we can reclaim all of our history right now. But it has to be an organized initiative in all aspects of our lives. Home, school, churches, radio station, music. It has to be a strategic plan where everyone is reclaiming our history and our legacy and our culture.
So we have more intellectuals that are speaking than we've ever had before. You have all these different movements. You have the ADOS movement, the American Descendant of Slaves. You have the Black Lives Matter movement. You have the Afrocentric movement. You have the Support Black Business movement. We have all these movements. We have all these folk in high places in government, elected officials. And here we are on this little show talking about it, talking about what we need to do. Why aren't these conversations happening in those high places, in those big circles, in those think tanks, amongst intellectuals?
That's a really, it's happening, but we don't know about it, and it's not public. It may be covert.
So how can you expect a community to involve itself, to inject itself, to prepare itself, when you're hiding all the answers, all the information? Is that a smart way to do this?
Well, no, but I think we have to rise up. The people, like what NBA's doing, NFL doing, WNBA. Hey, we're going to make this an issue about social justice. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter. So when people stand up, we all need to stand up at the same time. We don't have to wait for them to stand up. We can demand that they stand up. We can demand that they discuss it. If you're not going to take care of us, you don't need to be in office.
So you said Black Lives Matter. I just want to get to this real quick, because Black Lives Matter, to us, isn't a slogan. It's not a movement. We say Black Lives Matter, that our lives matter, but it seems that the movement of Black Lives Matter has taken the actuality of Black Lives Mattering and kind of hijacked it. So now you have this counter movement of all lives matter, as though we don't know that. Of course all lives matter. We believe that all lives matter, but all lives aren't in peril. All lives aren't being murdered, especially by law enforcement. Black lives are. And that's the issue. So then people say, well, if Black Lives Matter, then why isn't Black Lives Matters marching when black people kill each other? And so that's where you get this rub, because I believe that Black Lives matter. No matter who kills a black life, Black Lives matter. How do we get this messaging out so that the divide with parts of white America believing that Black Lives mattering for real in our communities is the same as Black Lives Matter, the movement?
We all have to take up, this is a beautiful question, we all have to take on the personal responsibility of saying that Black Lives Matter in our discussions, in our homes, in our schools, in our businesses. But everyone, black folks need to stand up and say, Black Lives Matter. We can't depend on other folks. But if we don't believe it, it can easily get hijacked.
But can't you? But don't you also think that we should be as outraged, even more so, when black people are killing each other?
I absolutely believe that we need to make the model the dignity of life in our community, that we value life.
So look at us in 1970 and look at us in 2020. Are we better off in 2020 than we were in 1970?
No, we were doing it in 1970.
We're the only community that's going backwards. There's no other community in these United States of America that are going backwards. But us. Is it everybody else's fault? Is there where do our leadership?
Yeah, it's leader, but we are the ones that make the leaders. We empower our leaders, but we don't necessarily have a relationship with them or hold them personally accountable. You have to teach people to hold your representatives accountable. Who's teaching them that? In different communities, I know better about the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that you can get elected and not be held accountable by your community. So are the community people holding leadership accountable?
No, I don't think so, because I don't care what part of the country it's in. We have the same issues, whether you're in Maryland or you're in Oakland, whether you're in Compton or Sacramento.
I've seen varied things about that. I saw when Mayor Dinkins was mayor of New York that the people in Harlem, in Brooklyn, and East New York, they were holding him accountable. I witnessed that. But that's a training issue. How do you hold leadership accountable? Who's training people to do that? Because they're not the beneficiary of what the leaders are doing. They don't even know what leaders are doing for them. So how can you hold them accountable?
Don't we, as intellectuals, as people that are in the know, people who are in the purview, don't we have a responsibility to bring it out? Don't we have a responsibility to say to our leadership, this is unacceptable? Look, John Lewis died in office. Okay? Now, John Lewis, nobody can say that he didn't do a great job and that he didn't put his life on the line and that he wasn't at the forefront of the civil rights movement. But we're not saying John Lewis should have moved out the way and prepared the next person to take his place. Because if we were running a relay race, he ran out of gas. We can't win that race. His part of the relay, he ran too long. And so we always end up in last place. Don't we have a responsibility as the folk around us to say, you got to move out the way?
And you know what? I said personal responsibility, and people who are aware need to lead the way and train people to hold people accountable. But people are saying to our elders that it's time to go. People are saying it. They may not be saying it in mass, but they are saying it.
I wish I heard them.
Well, it all depends on the circle that you're in, too. I'm telling you, we do so much quietly. That's a cultural thing. We have to bring it out.
Okay, so if that's the case, then John Lewis would have passed the torch. If that's the case, then we would know that Maxine Waters is passing the torch. Well, I think what's happened here is we've gotten so used to being politically correct and how we do this and, doing it the right way. We've been lying to ourselves for so long that it's difficult for us to tell the truth about us.
But also, how many people really easily give up power? What's the average age of people in Congress? The average age of people in the Senate?
But this is it. See, and again, I can't concern myself with the average age when I'm in last place. I have to concern myself with. I have to concern myself with what I do, because if somebody else, if another group of people are keeping their leadership in place too long, maybe, just maybe, I get to get a leg up because I get new ideas and new energy, new thought processes, which gets me a little closer than I was before.
It's more complicated than that. I'd like to know the people around you and how do they get access to be your friends.
We're going to be right back because I got the wrap up. I got the wrap up deal, and so that means that we got to come back. We're going to be back after this commercial. Brenda Harris, educator, all around brilliant woman, is in the studio, and we're having a discussion about our history and why aren't we making it important to us. Why is our history? Why do we expect other people to tell our history? We'll be right back.
Looking to change the quality of your life? We've got you.
Want your high school diploma? We got you.
Want to obtain your Class A driver's license?
Or study to become a medical assistant?
Want to learn to work with children?
Or be prepared to work in an office setting? We got you.
Need childcare? We got you.
Need help with transportation?
Is independent study a better option for you? We got you.
Improve the quality of life for you and your family. And remember, we've got you.
Okay, you guys, we're back, and Brenda was just getting ready to tell me there's some missing pieces here. So I'm going to start with you. There's some missing pieces here.
The missing pieces is you're talking about passing the baton. So the people in that inner circle are in that inner circle for a reason, because they make the leader feel comfortable. So if the leader does not like folks to make them feel uncomfortable, you're not going to be in that inner circle. And then people that are surrounded by leadership, they become a part of the leadership. And they adopt the attitudes to keep that leader in position. I don't think that the leadership allows independent thinkers to challenge them.
Isn't that frightening? For you to say that, I don't mind an independent thinker. I want an independent thinker. I want to argue with the independent thinker. I want to debate with the independent thinker. And I may not agree with the independent thinker at the time that we're involved. But it will be later on that, I'll give you an example.
That may not be a part of our culture.
So, I'm black.
That you're talking about one person. I'm talking about the whole race.
So me and my cousin, we started a domino league together, and whereas two independent thinking as you can get, and most of our discussions ended up in an argument, and oftentimes we didn't talk to each other for a few days before we talked to each other again. But I learned so much from him in those discussions. I knew what I did that was good, and time told me things that I did that weren't. So as my life continued, my cousin would be the person that I would go to first, or I would run things by, and sometimes he would tell me what was going to happen to me. And my life became richer. I became more successful. My vision became clearer, my purview wider, because I had independent thinkers around me, not just him, but other folk that push me. If we're not honest enough to say that irregardless of all of the things that have happened to us, from slavery to Jim Crow to black codes to systemic racism and lynchings, if we're not going to be honest enough to say we, to some degree, have failed ourselves, and there's some responsibility that we got to take. Our leadership has failed us, and there's some responsibility they have to take, and the system that we have in place, of the systemic system that we have in place of keeping us in place, that we keep this hierarchy where, as you said, if the leader doesn't feel comfortable, he doesn't want people around him. This show happens because there's a dynamic between me and Keisha Matthews that happens that isn't comfortable at times. Probably not comfortable for her, isn't comfortable for me, but it's what builds the show. It's what makes the show stretch. Don't we have to?
Yes, we have to do it, and it's a beginning, but we've got to do it on a larger scale. Maybe by people listening to you, it might change their thinking. Now, I view everything through the eyes and the lens of a plantation.
Okay.
So, we are still operating under the plantation style of living, even though we may live in different places and have nice cars. But the overseer and all of that, but people are not comfortable around people that are challenging. As a teacher, the student that was mischievous and challenging and smarter than I loved. But there are other teachers like, oh no, I don't want that kid in my class. He's a better mathematician than I am. So we're talking about human ego also. Mm-hmm. We're all very fragile. So it's a training that needs to happen in all of our institutions. Well, that it's okay to be intelligent and challenging and different. We do not support that. And everyone, now that we have this opportunity, because this pandemic has given us a lot of opportunity to do the things that you're talking about. So our artists can give the message. They're creative and they're different. Our sports figures, our churches, what are they doing? Right. They can help rebuild the pillars of us reclaiming our legacy and making ourselves human.
So you said that you look at things through the eyes of a plantation.
Oh yes, that's the only way I'm able to survive.
So I look at things through the eyes of freedom.
Oh.
Nobody can nobody can stop me from doing anything. There's nothing. I'm not afraid of none of it. When I was young, my mom said, in order for you to be equal, you got to be 10 times better than a white man.
We were told that.
To be equal. So if ever I'm in a room with white men, I know that I'm the smartest one in the room. It's the only way I can be there. So I don't have a fear. There's no plantation, there's no limit, there's no idea. I'm doing this show because I decided I want to do a show.
But there is a plantation. That's the reason we're addressing racist, institutionalized, and systemic racism.
Well, so
you
let me
better
just
be
this.
crystal clear. There is a plantation, and you have the freedom as an entrepreneur to do anything you want to do because you made your own money. But in these traditional settings, it's operated like a plantation.
I agree with you, but doesn't that have a lot to do with your thinking? Doesn't that have a lot to do with conditioning?
Oh yeah, it has everything to do with it.
Doesn't that have a lot to do with your leadership, putting you in a box? It's because I am threatening to conventional leadership.
I'm threatening.
So how do we create that freedom, because that's what I want for you guys. I want you to have the freedom to knock away every fence, every hurdle, every obstacle, every negative connotation, and dream and believe and grow and just do.
Well, there is a movement that we don't have creativity in the schools. So if people don't have creativity, how do you access creativity? You can have this dream for people and you want it to happen, but what is the process for a group to come to that conclusion? How do you build trust? How do you build consensus? What are the strategies that we're putting in place to make this happen?
Trust yourself. Start knowing you. Start loving yourself. So it's got to start with you.
Self-care.
And so I mean, look at us. We're so afraid of COVID because now you get to see the underlying health issues that exist in our community. So people say, well, so many of us have COVID because of because we're black. No, it's because we're frontline workers. We're more exposed. The more you're exposed to it, the more likely you can get it. And then high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, all these things contribute to the possibilities.
But you said something into that camera. I want you to. So what are the steps for wanting people to be free and to be creative and looking at all of the options that I have as a person?
You got to get eyeball to eyeball with yourself, and you got to do self-inventory,
self-assessment,
and you have to look at you. And the one thing that you're going to have to do, that is the most frightening thing, is to be honest enough with you to say, I don't love me enough.
So where within this culture, where within our cultural institutions, are we talking about self-care, being honest with yourself, doing a self-assessment? What's the first step of a self-assessment? People may not know what self-care means or self-assessment. What are the institutional's responsibility to create the strategies so that it can happen?
What is the community's responsibility? What is our leadership responsibility?
That's what I'm asking.
So, I think that we have to force these conversations. First of all, there's a systemic racism in this country, and there's a systemic classism in our community.
Oh yeah, stratification is real.
Where we have black folk who, you want to talk about a plantation, who feel like they're the overseers of the black community.
That's what I'm talking about. That we're saying the same thing. But I think it's real significant with the hip hop community, with the athletes, with the churches, with the homeless. The homeless people are very intelligent. With the addicts, everyone has to get this message. How do we force feed this to people? This is what we have to do. We were force fed about racism and that you're inferior. What instruments are we using now? We've got to talk to the industry, arts, entertainment, digital media, all institutions. We have to address this about it's our time, and now is the time to do it.
Technology is allowing that to happen. Social media is allowing that to happen. I believe that these kind of conversations are going to help force that to happen. But I believe voices like yours have to be heard more. And you have to take on the responsibility of making sure that we can access your intelligence and your information. I read things that you send to me, and I do them on my show, Kings in the Morning. and I'm still a year behind. That's how much information you send me.
But you were open to it.
More,
like when you talked into that camera and you told those people, everybody that's listening within their network, they can start doing self-assessments. They can start having the same conversations that we're having. They have the personal power to do it. You just don't have to wait for someone else to motivate you. You can do it. Everyone that's listening needs to develop and enhance their network and start having a different conversation. A courageous conversation about self-assessment, self-dignity, all of the issues that we don't talk about with each other. We can do it within our own little network and start building and building and building. Because everyone that's in a network, they go to another network. Just like you have to trace for the COVID, we can start talking to people. How many people are we going to spread it to?
So I know we're going to be taking questions in a minute here. If any of you all have questions, if you have a question for Ms. Harris or myself, Keisha Matthews is going to come here in a minute and bring the questions to us. So we encourage people to get involved in the conversation, and really, I don't know if you. I'm a high school graduate. Okay, I'm not like some super duper smart dude, right? I love to read, and I'm not afraid of me, and I don't concern myself with what people think about me, what I say or what I do, or any of that. And I think you have to be comfortable enough to open yourself up to it all, to be scrutinized, to be loved and to be hated. I think if Donald Trump haven't shown us anything else, it is that when you are open enough with you can convince enough people to do anything. Donald Trump being president, to me, I was happy to see a white man so honest about his racism and bigotry.
Oh, I love it.
And when I saw how smart he wasn't, in my mind I said, shit, I could be president.
That's right.
I could be president. If I could convince enough people to believe I could be president, you could be president. Anybody can be president. How do we know? Donald Trump is president. Come on. I mean, right now I was talking to the big fella and he said Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
Wasn't. Oh, you didn't know? You didn't know I could do Donald?
But if you know history, we have a whole lot of leaders at local, regional, county, state, and federal level. How did they get those positions? Look at Bull Connor.
We're going to come right back. We have questions. If you guys have questions, ask them now. Key Matthews is going to be here in a minute. My name is Jay King. The show is Jay King Live, Straight No Chaser. Ms. Brenda Harris is my guest.
Looking to change the quality of your life? We've got you.
Want your high school diploma? We got you.
Want to obtain your Class A driver's license?
Or study to become a medical assistant?
Want to learn to work with children?
Or be prepared to work in an office setting? We got you.
Need childcare? We got you.
Need help with transportation?
Is independent study a better option for you? We got you.
Improve the quality of life for you and your family. And remember, we've got you.
Okay, we're back. Jay King Live, Straight No Chaser. My guest is Brenda Harris, one of the smartest people I know. And Brenda, we used to have late night conversations, early morning conversations, in the middle of the day conversations. And there is never a time when I'm not learning something from you.
You always said that, but you're open. You talk about the high school diploma, the education just makes you eligible. But with technology and a free public school system and a free library system, no one is preventing anyone from being literate. It's a choice.
So why have we failed financially when it comes to being literate? What has happened to you know, why haven't we graduated in that respect as a community?
It has not been modeled for us, and the fear, and just, I think we just like to live for today, like there may not be a tomorrow.
That's hopelessness.
I think that we have hopelessness more so than slaves and free slaves.
Wow. Today.
Is
Key coming? So, you ready?
I'm right here. I want to start first with some comments from YouTube. So, a sprinkle of sugar Callie said, the sad part is most don't believe we've been conditioned. Silver Conductor said, Kanye for president. Sprinkle of Sugar said, comfortably conditioned because we're so used to someone else doing the work. Kanye needs to tend to his mental health. But Sweet D is saying that the Silver Conductor has made some wonderful points. And I just want to read some of the points that Silver Conductor said, and you can comment on these. He said that you're on point, Miss Brenda, about those who don't want the boat rocked. The pandemic has thrown so much off in this world that people are so confused and scared, which is the they weapon of choice. Our people have been conditioned to think what won't rock the boat, be happy, and go with the flow of what's in place. WTH.
Okay, do you have any questions?
So, did you want to comment on what he had said?
No, just
okay.
let him comment.
Okay, so Larry Brown from Facebook said, hey, she hit you with your own thought. How do you pass the torch? How do we get around you? Because what you stated is fact, the relay race principle. Who gets the baton? Therein lies a lack of the transference.
Well, you know, so you got to start preparing. That's why, you know, first of all, especially as it relates to our organizations. Our organizations are haphazard at best. They don't oftentimes follow their.
It's the lack of training. We need the coaching model. The coaching model, the how everyone can learn about leadership. When you stratify it, where only one person thinks that they're the leader, and no one has they're not trained to be leaders.
Right.
They don't have the opportunities. You don't know.
Well, I think great leaders are phenomenal Indians. So when it's time for you to lead, you do leaders. You do your leadership. When it's time for you to let somebody else do it, you become an Indian. You become the greatest Indian that person could have.
But we don't. But you have to have training and mentorship. Yes, there are some natural-born leaders, but they too have access information. They have a model of what they think that should happen. But that Larry Brown was right on it in terms of it's a relay.
Well, I said
it's
it was
marathon.
so what he said was this. I said it was a relay. So basically, he was saying, who do I pass it to?
Right.
I pass it to the person that we get prepared. But you can't pass it. You know, I've been here a year. As if he's talking about being the president of the chamber, I've been there a year. How long do I plan on being there? I don't know. Maybe 4 or 5 years. But I have to prepare the next person to take that mantle and taking that job. It's a selfless job. It's a job that you got to do more giving than you will getting.
But I also said to you should have student interns shadowing you and working with you, and you start in high school, out of high school, community college.
Sam Kinsey is the guy shadowing me right now, 24 years old. Sam Kinsey Jr. out of Del Paso Heights.
Well, you need 5 to 6.
Yeah.
You need 5 to 7 people.
Yeah, but you find them. You know, they have to be aggressive and ambitious. They have to be like a Sam Kinsey that'll say, "Teach me." And like you said, it's got to be people that are open. If you're not open, I don't care what I say. I don't care what I do. If a person isn't open to learn.
But in a classroom, we force everyone to be a
Yeah,
facilitator in charge, and
but this isn't a classroom.
but yes, it is.
Not for me. I don't have time to have a classroom.
Well,
you got to sit in. You got to sit in and go ahead. What's the next question?
I was telling her to tell you, yes, it is a classroom. Larry Brown said, statement, we need to be forgiving and understanding of others who look like us that may not necessarily have a limelight or stage or platform. We need to be all-inclusive, collective, one. And for those who oppose or challenge, we must find a way to channel that and turn that energy into good energy, conducive energy for the purpose of the whole of us. United we stand, divided we fall, or retard our progression.
Unconditional love.
Listen, we can have that conversation all day. You can't have unconditional love if you don't love yourself.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean,
so we listen. If we don't, so it's for me. It's going to always go back to me. If until I'm ready to make the change, so we can talk about what other people do all day long and what other people should do. What are you doing? What are you doing to change the outcome for you? Because if I'm looking for somebody else to be the change, and that somebody ain't me, so in my circle, I want people that think like me.
I heard something different.
Okay.
For me, black folks are very critical of each other, and we don't look at the context. So I can get real critical, and now that this pandemic has happened, I said, I'm pretty hard on black folks. What can I do to assist or stay out of the way?
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're a target, we take you out. We take each other out and say you're not of value. So I think that in a part of that self-assessment, we really need to understand how we relate to each other.
Absolutely. So, but and we're not a monolithic people. We're not going to think the same. We're not going to have the same approach. So we have to be also open enough and honest enough to say, I don't have to get along with everybody. Everybody's not going to think the way I think. Folk who think the way I think and who understand where I'm coming from, everybody's not going to want to be financially literate. Everybody's not going to want to do a self-evaluation.
But you're like this with people. Oh, I'm just going to run it down your throat.
Because that's what I am.
Yes, but I'm
So I'm saying that
that's you.
For me,
but we can treat each other differently. We don't have to have the same opinion.
Right.
But we can keep on moving in the
same direction.
way.
That's absolutely. It doesn't mean that
I'm reading a new book on Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
The one about their real leadership style. People better pick it up.
Miss Brenda, you're getting a lot of cheers on the...
Oh, can I do that? Yay!
Yeah. Say it, Brenda. Too critical. People have to understand. There's a question from Eddie Malik Mitchell. He says, as a people, listening for us is an exception, except in church. How do we train our people to listen and truly hear?
Simone's book, Shut Up and Listen. Now people are talking about shut up and listen, because we do not listen if we do not like you, if your hair is the lady that's with 1619. People are talking about a hair color instead of her New York Times project.
Right.
I don't like your glasses. Oh, you need to lose weight. Oh, you don't wear braids. You don't have on makeup. But they don't mind looking at Kim Kardashian or another image that doesn't even reflect them. Go ahead, Kim, make your money. But we are very critical of each other due to that plantation.
You got anything else, Keisha?
I'm sorry, I was putting the book down. Simone, you said shut up and listen.
Yes, you know who she is, right?
No, I'm looking up her name in the...
Simone Sanders.
So,
okay, I'll put it in there later.
So it's these kind of discussions to me that are going to move us forward. These are the discussions that you may not like them. They may get uncomfortable. It may start off as a disagreement. These are the kind of conversations I have with my cousin, and these are the conversations that grew us both, to the degree that once we started elevating our process and the way we think and the way we conjugate and how we move, we became better. We became better with each other. We became better for each other, and today we're closer than we've ever been.
We have a comment from Scott Huckleby. Thank you for having a platform. We as a community have to learn how to work together and build each other up selflessly so that we can grow a better equipped group of folks. This way we can weather the storm as we empower each other.
I'll get a little dig in. I grew up in Marysville, so I listen to 97.5, but I only hear about Del Paso Heights and Oak Park. So that's
because DJ Shelly Shell talks about Meadowview in South Sacramento.
Well, it's beginning, but you used to hear a lot about.
Well, because those.
Don't defend it.
I'm just saying those are the neighborhoods.
Marysville, Sacramento has the largest emergent population of black folks. So how do we educate those folks if they have to hear about Grant and Sac High?
Well,
and Oak Park and Del Paso Heights.
Well, that's how
we have. We have kicked people to the curb.
Then what you need to do, instead of telling us what we don't do, because I've tried to get you to come on my show several times, then you need to come on the show and have conversations about Marysville and other parts of the city, because like you said, we become critical, so we need to become more involved.
Because of our diversity, we need to really address the diversity
absolutely
of where people come from.
So then,
how can they be a part of the dialogue?
So then that's where people like you come in and make sure that happens. As a matter of fact, it would be great if you came on once a week and helped make the diversity conversation happen on one of my days, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Yeah, I think we need to bring in the people. I want to hear from everyone. People come from all over.
And it would be great to have a conversation with Brenda Harris on KDEE 97.5.
And then how come only certain people are asked to be on the political conversations, or it's a certain viewpoint?
Listen, because that show host gets the opportunity to pick, because it's their time that they get to do what they want to do.
We have two more questions from YouTube.
Go ahead.
This one says, this is for Brenda. What strategies can be used in community organization?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Asset mapping, asset development, consensus, and trust building. We are assets in a community. We are the human assets. So once we understand that we each have something, we're building upon our asset, our personal asset, we can build community. But asset mapping, it means we're the resource.
Right.
We're the platinum line of credit. Until we relate that we are the asset and not the deficit model that we're trained to be, community, we've got to value our experiences no matter what the situation is. We've got to be the asset to build our community.
And the second question is, when school districts won't let real black history be taught, how do we get past that hurdle?
My mother lived at the school board. You've got to organize. You start at the school site. Students have to demand it. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. What are these young people doing that they're not protesting in their classrooms, to their principals, to their teachers, and parents? Even if you have to bring a fake person, go to that school board meeting and say, we demand that you do black history. As long as we feel that we are not of value, I'm diverse, but I don't like being force-fed about other people's history or culture. My mother taught us about the world in the home. So we're force-fed everybody else's history and culture and food, so we can use the same strategies to say we are worthy and it is owed to us. But people cannot handle the history of what happened to black people in America. They just cannot handle it.
I agree with you.
So
it's
we
too
did
cold-blooded is what happened that they can't
We
do
did
it.
get the title of the book from Angela Carter. It's Simone Sanders, No, You Shut Up, Speaking Truth to Power and Reclaiming America. That's the book reference. And that's it for the questions.
All right. Brenda, I knew this would be a great conversation. And, you know, this season I have 8 episodes. You're number 5. We have 3 more to go. We're going to do financial literacy next week. The week after that, we're doing Donald Trump's 10-point plan for Black America that we overlooked, that we didn't even access as a congressional Black caucus, or let the community know that it existed to hold them accountable.
That's right.
And then I'm going to have Blacks in politics and just what this political thing looks like, this Trump-Biden presidential race that's coming up with Mark Harris. Daryl James is going to be who I do the Donald Trump 10-point plan with, and he is he's a heavy dude. He's a dynamic dude. He's going to be very powerful and very controversial. And David Fontaine is who we're doing the financial literacy with.
Yeah, I know David.
Yeah, so we'll do financial literacy with him. But I want to thank you for taking the invitation and sharing yourself with people. And I'm right here, you guys. You guys are listening to me tell you that you should hear Brenda Harris's voice on 97.5 KDEE. So if people want to reach you, how do they reach you? Is there an email address that people can reach you by?
Yes.
What's the email address?
b.harris321 at comcast.net. b.harris321 at comcast.net.
And I want you all to send her so many emails that she cannot escape, that she has to be on one of my shows on one of my days, at least one day a week, so we can discuss people, places, things, culture, and life.
Thank you, Jay.
No, thank you.
It's real critical what you're doing. Budget, accountability. My mother taught us that. We had to know the budget. You got to know accountability. We got to know that 10-point plan. If you're not reading, you can't hold people accountable.
Yes. So I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your statements. Thank you for interacting with us. Our job is to bring as much information to you as possible, to cause you to have a conversation, whether you agree with the discussion or not, to open you up, open your mind to all possibilities, to all conversations, to all thoughts, and maybe, just maybe, certain parts of you will change. I want to say thank you and good night. We'll see you guys next week on J King Live. Straight, no chaser. That's right, let's vote.
J King Live.
J King, no chaser.
J King Live.